Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars video. Before we begin, shortly after this video goes live, I will be streaming over on my second channel, X2. I plan to play some Empire at War, and I'll probably continue my campaign in the Awakening of the Rebellion mod. We'll be aiming to take the Corellian shipyards. It will be fun, so consider popping over and saying hi. Anyway, today we'll be examining the history of one of the galaxy's most famous starfighters, the TIE. Most of the information in today's video will relate to legends, but at the end I'll very briefly bring in some canon information. With that being said, let's get started. The TIE Fighter's origins can actually be traced back even before the Clone Wars, where various individuals, including Ryth Sinar, were working on lightweight starfighters that could be compactly stored and which had few moving parts, thus making maintenance less of an issue than on an ordinary starfighter. And of course, these would be the guiding principles of the TIE itself. Fighters like this saw increased use during the Clone Wars, and I think the best example of this in a generation that I'll call early TIEs would be the V-Wing. The V-Wing was focused on speed and maneuverability. Unlike the later TIE Fighter, it did have a shield, but its design would go on to inform the TIE Fighter itself. We also had the launch of the Twin Ion Engine Starfighter, and of course Twin Ion Engine does stand for TIE. The TIE was a precursor for the standard TIE that was at the very least in conceptual design by the beginning of the Clone Wars, with research on each component not finishing until war's end. The TIE would be adopted by the Empire and would become incredibly widespread throughout that organization. That takes us to the TIE LN, and the first true generation of TIEs. TIE LNs actually weren't that different than the basic Twin Ion Engine Starfighter. There was further refinement on production and maintenance, there were different aspects of power generation, but the TIE LN by this point is exactly what we expect a TIE to be. It's very fast and maneuverable, it's low maintenance, but it's also cheap and doesn't offer very much protection. The TIE LN was integrated even more deeply within the Empire than the basic TIE, and in the end it would influence almost every aspect of starfighter design within the Imperial Navy. A key part of this era is divergence, and divergence started early with fighters like the TIE Ground Targeting or the TIE GT, which were built off the basic TIE Fighter skeleton with some differences. However, eventually divergence would be more drastic, with fighters like the TIE Bomber still maintaining the basic TIE elements like a ball cockpit and little or no shielding, but further leaning into their specialized role. And at this point, the Empire was actually using TIEs for both very routine and very specialized duties. For example, the TIE Transport, transported people, while various TIE models were used for scouting or whatever else. And it honestly does make sense to make starfighters off a single common base. It probably lessens on equipment and maintenance needs, but eventually, as the Rebels became more prevalent and fighters like the X-Wings were inflicting massive damage on the Empire, the Navy not only saw increased divergence, but also upgrading. Even before Endor, the Empire was working on various advanced TIE models, like the Defender, the Phantom, the Avenger, and more. Most of these would be limited, as either the Alliance would strike against various TIE factories making these advanced models, as was the case with the TIE Hunters, or they would otherwise be impractical or expensive. One, however, especially the Defender, would become at least somewhat prevalent and would see use throughout the Galactic Civil War and beyond. And I think the battle at Yavin is a good place to end this era in our heads, and we can look at now the post-Yavin but pre-Endor era. And there's not a whole lot to talk about here. The Empire continued to experiment on TIEs, but we also saw Palpatine move towards replacing the basic TIE LN, choosing instead to rely on the TIE Interceptor, which did have most of the positive elements of the TIE LN, including its cheapness, its speed, its maneuverability, but it was better in various aspects. However, because of the Battle of Endor, the TIE LN would not be fully phased out, although interceptors by now had gained some popularity. The next era we have is post-Endor, and of course the Empire's major decline saw a massive change in TIE fighters. First of all, fighters weren't seen as so disposable. So many TIE fighters and TIE models were given shields and sometimes even hyperdrive and life support systems. Although the Empire didn't immediately die or anything like that, they obviously didn't have the same amount of shipyards, they didn't have the same production capacity, and they could not afford to rely on a naval doctrine which saw fighters as disposable. This era also saw fragmentation and Imperial warlords. One in particular, Warlord Zinj, launched a new TIE model called the TIE Raptor, which was even smaller than a standard TIE fighter. Dark Empire also brought forth two new types of TIEs. The Empire's World Devastators and the Empire's shipyards produced automated TIE droids, as Palpatine attempted to return to classic Imperial naval doctrine. Although not technically TIEs, we also saw the Empire use shadow droids, which were cyborg fighters enhanced with the Force and the minds of critically injured pilots. And this is really one of the first times that we see the Empire move away from a TIE or a TIE variant as its main starfighter. That being said, the Dark Empire's rule would be short, and we'll move now to a period that I will call Decline. Probably the best representation of the TIE Fighter's decline came when the main Imperial remnant, as led by Galad Pellaeon, chose instead to rely on the Prey Bird starfighter rather than the TIE. This was really just due to the fact that the Empire lost so many ships. They just couldn't afford to keep building or buying TIE fighters. Interestingly, the Prey Bird was much heavier, it was actually shielded, so it was a doctrinal change from TIEs as well. But from this point on, the Empire was clearly no longer the dominant force in the galaxy, and the much better quality fighters of the New Republic and later Galactic Alliance would be much more relevant. However, we also move into an era of non-Imperial TIE fighters, and perhaps the best example of this was the Chiss Clawcraft. Now, it's unclear when exactly the Clawcraft was designed, but the Chiss had long been working on integrating elements of Imperial technology with Chiss design philosophy, and this resulted in everything from a Chiss Star Destroyer to the aforementioned fighter. TIEs were also frequently entering private hands, especially as transport ships, and after the Yuuzhan Vong War, the Galactic Alliance also made several TIE models. The one we know the best is probably the TIE Blur. That was a state-of-the-art stealth ship made by the GA, and we actually have a scene where Jacen Solo steals one, pretending to test it out while having to fight off Jedi starfighters, and that's of course in Legacy of the Force. A pretty cool scene. The Empire also came up with their next-gen TIE interceptor, the Star Hunter, which was most likely better in every conceivable way, especially shielding. Finally, by 130 ABY, we saw the last generation of TIE fighter, which was the Predator. Now, visually the Predator is quite different from an ordinary TIE. It lacks any sort of wing strut, however it does still have the main central eyeball, and of course has developmentally a connection to prior TIE models. There were some differences though. This was truly a superiority fighter, it was shielded, it was well armed, and it wasn't simple like basic TIEs. It had moving wings, which were difficult for maintenance, and they most likely weren't very cheap. However, generally that's in line with the development of naval doctrine by this time, which saw smaller warships, but ones that were very expensive and very powerful for their size. And that's it. Those are the basic generations of TIE fighters. To put it broadly, I'd say we have the pre-Empire early TIEs first, then we have the establishment of the TIE LN and the creation of new TIE models up until Yavin. We have post-Yavin pre-Endor, which saw the Interceptor move towards the mainline fighter. Then we have the early post-Endor era, which doesn't see as many new TIE variants, but does see existing models frequently upgraded, with warlords modifying TIEs for their own use. Then we have serious decline. Then finally the TIE spreads out to all factions, before finally being upgraded to its final form by the Fel Empire. But that's all I have for today's video. Did you enjoy it? Which TIE is your favorite? Is there any eras or generations video you'd like to see me make next? Let me know all of that and more down in the description. Just a reminder again, I will be streaming over on the second channel, that's youtube.com/x2. Consider stopping by, saying hi, and maybe dropping a subscription while you're there. Till next time though guys, this has been EckhartsLadder. May the Force be with you.